Hello, America. Welcome to Your Leo Nation. I am the Chief, and we are so happy to be joined again today by the former special agent in charge of the Los Angeles field office, Bill Bodner. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Bill, how are you?
I'm good, Mark. How are you?
Well, you know what? I'm doing okay, I guess, but it's just literally every day you read something that you just well, if I had it, I would pull my hair out,
Yeah.
and it's just mind-boggling. But this is not brand new, not brand new, but it's pretty new, pretty fresh off the print. I'm reading a headline from the Washington Examiner. Biden secretly dumped 320,000 quote unquote inadmissible illegal immigrants into U.S. cities. Bill, you heard about this?
Yeah, I sure have. And I mean, more troubling is the federal government won't say where they went.
Look at me, I'm shaking my head because
Yeah.
you're absolutely right, and, you have to wonder why, and I'm gonna get a little bit into the article, and I know there's some aspects of this that you've done some research on. I'm really excited for you to share, your thoughts about some of these different aspects of it, but I like to start off with this. You know, we talk about the rule of law. We believe in the rule of law. We support the rule of law, your Leo Nation. And the rule of law is just that. It's supposed to be standard, consistent, unbreakable, unshakable, no matter who you are, private, public. It's supposed to be just that, a rule, like the rule of gravity, the law of gravity. 2 + 2 = 4. It should not be malleable. And what I want to start off with, I just want to give you some examples of other places where the federal government is taking part in enforcement, what the priorities are, and compare that to the story about the Biden administration flying illegal aliens into this country. And by the way, they claim that the the illegal aliens, I'm sorry, what does Joe Biden call them now? Newcomers. They pay for it themselves. Don't you believe that, ladies and gentlemen? It's on your taxpayer dime. But let me start off with this story here. This is just fairly recently here, March 4th. The Los Angeles Times. A San Diego man has been arrested on suspicion of smuggling potent greenhouse gases into the United States from Mexico, becoming the first in the nation to be charged with smuggling the environmentally harmful gases that are commonly used as refrigerants, according to federal prosecutors. On a side note, I'm not really terribly worried about you putting refrigerants in your car or your refrigerator. I'm not too worried about that in the scheme of things compared to what's going on in the world right now. But apparently, the federal government is so active. They're so looking out for not only national security, apparently world security, that they have time to prosecute this guy for bringing in basically Freon from Mexico into San Diego. Michael Hart, 58, is accused of hiding hydrofluorocarbons, also known as HFCs, in his vehicle to transport them across the border from Mexico, according to a news release from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of California. Your old stomping grounds, Bill, and my old stomping grounds. I don't know if you know who the current prosecutor is there. You've been gone a short time. Do you know who that person is by any chance?
Yeah, that's San Diego. Yeah.
Yep, down there. Hydrofluorocarbons are considered a major driver of global warming, so forth, so on, blah, 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 blah. Now, let me see here about potential penalties. I can't remember in this article. Of course, the whole point is to let you know that the federal government is is allocating resources
Hmm.
to Freon
Hmm.
coming across the border. The indictment said that Hart conspired with people in both Mexico and the U.S. to buy and sell refrigerant from June 2022 through December 2022. He conspired to smuggle not methamphetamine or heroin
Or
or
fentanyl.
fentanyl, but hydrofluorocarbons. And now he's looking at, I'm sure, a stiff federal prison sentence for this atrocity of atrocities. Story number two. This is from, I forget what publication. Oh, actually, publication. It's from the U.S. and Immigration and Customs Enforcement website itself, right to the source. It's from their own website. This goes back August of last year of 2023, Houston, Texas. And Bill, maybe you remember this. I don't remember this particular story, but human smuggling slash trafficking. Again, this is from U.S. Immigration and Customs, ICE's own website. Texas man sentenced, so he's been sentenced to 10 years for operating human smuggling ring following a Homeland Security investigation out of Houston and U.S. Border Patrol investigation. Now, again, this guy was smuggling people. Now, this is a real
Mhm.
thing. This is not hydrofluorocarbons. This is not the Freon going into your refrigerator. This is actually a dirt bag who's smuggling people around the country. They were illegal aliens, also known as newcomers if you're in the Biden administration. But I want you to listen to the story very carefully, and it's very short. Houston, a judge ordered a Houston man to serve 10 years in federal prison August 1st, against last year, for organizing a human smuggling ring where he recruited and directed others to transport unlawfully present non citizens into the interior of the United States. The takeaway from that paragraph, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, unlawfully present non citizens. That means illegal aliens who are already here. They had already come across the border. He's serving a 10-year federal prison sentence for moving people who had already come across the border. He didn't traffic them across the border. He simply, I say simply, it's still a serious charge and he should be prosecuted, but
Mhm.
he was moving them around the country, within the country, not across our southern or northern border. The investigation that led to the conviction and sentencing was conducted by Homeland Security Investigations, HSI, Houston, and the U.S. Border Patrol. Charles Lee's 55, 10 years in prison, so forth and so on. So he had a network. He recruited others to legally transport non citizens from Laredo, Texas to San Antonio and other destinations. In total, the investigation showed that Smith supervised the transport of approximately 182 non citizens, including six unaccompanied minors. 182. So, what does this have to do, if you haven't guessed already, what does this have to do with the Washington Examiner article I'm reading from here and the Biden administration bringing in 320,000 immigrants into US cities? What does it have to do? Well, let me give you a little background here from this article from the Washington Examiner. Efforts by open border Democrats to blame the growing big city crisis on Texas and its program of busing illegal immigrants north are being upstaged by a new investigation showing that President Biden has secretly flown hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants from Latin American airports to 43 U.S. cities. Now, Bill, did I miss that? Misread that? Is it hundreds of thousands according to what you've read?
30,000 a month, every month. 30,000 a month, every month, to 43 cities. They're not disclosing where those 43 cities are. Mark, and I think it may be important to just drop this little note up front here. Why is it important to know where these cities are, and why is it significant that this administration is putting people in those cities? I think
It is a great question. Go ahead.
yeah. So I think there's flight from some of these states right now. People leaving California, like yourself. People leaving New York. People leaving Illinois. When the next census is done, Mark, what happens? The population count is down. Do you know that they count quote, illegals in the census? They count
Yes, I
illegals
do.
in the census. So explain to people why this is important. Why does the state of New York want to bump up their rolls with illegals? Why does the state of California want to bump up their rolls of illegals? Because this is a hugely important part of the story that explains to people how political operatives are doing this to take advantage of the system and manipulate the vote in years to come.
That's right. Well, it's Bill, I'm just this is why I love it every time you come on the program because you have such great insight. And the reason, by the way, there are a number of reasons, but I think the important reason that you are alluding to here is that the allocation of representatives, namely congressional districts, is determined by a state's
100%,
population.
Mark.
And
That's exactly it.
California and New York are bleeding population, which means they are California, if I'm not mistaken, I know it's at least one, maybe two. I know they've already lost one congressional representative based on a diminishing population.
Mhm.
And I was talking to another person recently about this, and when we look back, and I'm going to get more into this article because it's really going to kind of dovetail into some things that you want to talk about, Bill. I'm really excited to hear about. Another friend of mine and I were talking about this. It's like, why would the administration be funneling these people into these 43 cities? And like you said, Bill, we don't know. They won't tell us what these 43 cities are. We can guess, but they won't tell us when we know that over the last 3 years of this administration, and the estimates are all over the place, let's be honest here, it's anywhere from a low of 6 million people up to 12 million contacts at our southern border now in the last 3 years. 6 is probably somewhat low, 12 is probably somewhat high, but that's the
Mhm.
range. Let's just say it's 7.5 million just for kicks. I think that's low too. But those people are coming in generally, and we're not sure where they're going. The ones that are not been turned back, which the majority of them are coming across, we're not sure. But this, like you said, Bill, 320,000 being flown in, and many we know are actually from Venezuela, by the way, and other places in South and Central America, but they're being flown directly from foreign airports to U.S. cities. It's very tactical.
Mhm.
And it's for the reason that you alluded to that I answered. It's really for congressional representation. That's one of the reasons. Not to
Yep.
mention other federal funding and things like this, and maybe adding people to the voter rolls, whatever they can later on. So there are a lot of reasons. Let me continue with this article. Despite facing a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit from the Center for Immigration Studies, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection has refused to identify 43 airports it is dumping immigrants at after direct flights from Latin America. Can you imagine? This goes back to this guy who's going to end up serving or start serving a 10-year federal sentence for trafficking people within the country who are here illegally, 182 people. But the federal government is refusing a FOIA lawsuit to tell
Mhm.
the American citizens where these 320,000 illegal aliens have been dispersed. This is absolutely not the rule of law. This is absolutely a two-tiered system of law. In fact, when you have two-tiered law, you have no law at all. And this goes right back to what you're saying, Bill, about them not telling us why. Quote, while large immigrant receiving cities and media lay blame for the influx on Texas Republican Greg Abbott busing program, CBP has withheld from the center and apparently will not disclose the names of the 43 U.S. airports that have received 320,000 inadmissible aliens from January through December 2023, nor the foreign airports from which they departed, a CIS report shared uh, with Secret said. So Bill, with that, I know you wanted to talk about a very important specific aspect of this story, and that's the application, the app that these
Mhm.
people are using. And I want you to take it from here and talk about that because I think it's fascinating.
So first off, let me touch on something, Mark, that you just dovetailed into, which was the refusal of CBP to release this information. And by the way, CIS will eventually get the information, Mark. Um, there's no doubt in my mind. How do I know this? Because at DEA, we got a ton of freedom of information requests. I'm sure you did too at California Highway Patrol. Uh, they're the exemption that they're trying to apply to this particular thing will not hold up in court. Just a general law enforcement exemption, sensitive information. They're saying that operational vulnerabilities at these airports could be disclosed. Mark,
I
the
mean,
people who have
yeah,
been
I'm
on
sorry.
these flights, the people who have been on these flights know what airports they arrived at, and I'm
Mhm.
sure they've told everyone back in their home country what airports they've arrived at. So really, the information to you know to those that would do us harm is already out there. It's just the American people that are being kept in the dark. But as I said, eventually CIS will get this information. It's going to take a lawsuit, which they're now going to file. So what is this program about? This program is about paroling people into the country. And hey, to some extent, Mark, I'm going to be honest with you. I can see why a program like this is important, and here's why. When travelers come to America for the right reasons, for a better life, when they're traveling through Mexico, guess what's happening to them? They're being exploited, they're being victimized. Um, there's been cases of migrants murdered, sexually assaulted in Mexico. It's horrendous what goes on, right? So the premise of this program is rather than putting people through that process, why not parole them in directly from their country of origin? And the issue is where I take issue with this program is the federal government says these people are thoroughly vetted. Mark, these people are not thoroughly vetted. That's where I take issue with it. Like I said, I support the idea that we want to avoid uh, good people from being victimized, murdered, raped in Mexico, where there is no rule of law, before they get to the border and claim asylum or whatever. So they've tried to come up with this process. But this CBP One app, here's what people are told.
Mhm.
Uh, Basically, put in information. Don't show up to your airport of departure with documentation. I'm going to say that again. They're being told, don't show up to your airport of departure with documentation. They're told that photographs are optional. You don't need a photograph. So basically, whatever someone puts in the CBP One app, which I have here, I can pull it up
Mhm.
while I'm talking. Whatever people put in this CBP One app is what's taken as gospel. There's no vetting of these people, right? No more. The only thing that's probably done is what's generally done on anyone coming into the United States, a pre-check, right? In other words, your
Mhm.
name is on a manifest, your name and birthday. It goes into a system to check and see if there's any outstanding warrants for you. But if you're lying about the information, and there's no incentive not to lie, there's no real verification done. um, how is that actually vetting people? It's not. So
It's
so,
not.
so it's not a safe process, and and the reason why they won't disclose where people are going is they don't want. Here's where people are going, Mark. Boston Airport, for example, 1 million more international people from 23 than in 22. Chicago, 1.6 million more people in 2023. And New York Airport, 5 million more people in 23 than 22. So listen, I don't know if some of that is a bounce back from COVID, whatever it is, but there's a bunch more people coming to these cities where they've had such incredible issues housing immigrants. And
Mhm.
like you said, they're putting it on Texas, on the governor of Texas. That's not what the issue is. The issue is these flights directly from foreign countries, Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, what's the fourth one? Venezuela,
Mhm.
and flying directly from those countries, 30,000. each 30,000 people each month from each country going directly to cities where we're losing population, where there's flight from those cities because people um, are not satisfied with the quality of life there, and people are trying to bump up the rolls to maintain their political advantage in those cities. That's really what is going on.
Yeah, Bill, and it's you put it so succinctly, especially compared to me. I know I can ramble, especially when I get passionate. The funny thing, there's so much wrong with this. First of all, let's go and take out the fact that they still won't release the locations of those 43 cities or the names of those 43 cities.
Uh-huh.
We'll go ahead and pass on that for a second and just go back to this original thing of flying people in. You would think that if they're doing this for the reasons they say, and there are a lot of reasons, but the administration would want to tout this. They want to put in a feather in their cap. Hey, we're doing XYZ to help these people to get out of this this country, this situation, bringing families in, want to introduce people to the American way of life. We want to get people acclimated and folded into our culture, things like this. In other words, they would be flying the flags for this, so to speak. They'd be marketing this out in a political sense if they think that this is a good thing. They don't. And for the reasons that you made so clear, it's purely for potential, for hopeful political benefit to this particular administration and particular party in the long run, which I think is it's beyond it's way beyond disgraceful and shameful. Um, I believe, of course, that it's illegal. If I did the exact same thing for the reasons the administration now claims they do because of the FOIA Act, they weren't even talking about it before they were forced to at least admit they're doing this. If I went to Mexico and I brought somebody in, by the way, for humanitarian reasons, and I had it, the only way that, well, anyway, if I did that, I'd be violating federal law.
Yeah.
If I brought them undocumented and try to get them across the border without anybody knowing about it, I'd be subjected to federal penalties, and probably much more so if I had a gallon of Freon in the truck. But that's a different story. But here we have the
And
federal government engaged in this at an industrial level. 320,000. And by the way, that 320,000, I don't even know if that's accurate. Again, I literally don't know. It could be worse than that. In other words,
no,
the FOIA is only going to get so much, at least at this point. I
no, I mean,
stepped in,
listen,
Bill.
Mark,
Go ahead.
and just to say that that number is being used because that's the limitation of the executive order authority. 30,000 people a month
Right.
from each. Yeah.
Yes. And so there's no telling what other people and agencies are doing in a rogue sense or things like this. So I want to get into you were talking about the app and you were going to continue on that, I believe. And there was another aspect that you talked to me about offline with that application.
Yeah, I was just saying that, they're telling people there's actually signs up telling people don't bring your ID
Right.
when you show up to travel. I don't know, Mark. What else was I telling you about it?
I
I'm
think you
not
were talking
remembering what it was.
about using it internationally for other reasons. Um, I believe you mentioned something about that, but it might have just been about
Well, I
on
mean,
the app.
so what's just so so everyone understands how it works is you have this you download this app in a foreign country, you put in your information, and you show up to the airport with basically that app, and you get on a plane and you come to the United States, and you're paroled into the United States. You can stay for 2 years. You can get a work authorization for 2 years. Um, the issue is that you can make up whatever information you want and put it in that app. That's what the major
Right.
issue is.
Right. And this
There's no.
is
So, for example, Mark, one of the things I saw was hey, no, these are people that have financial backing here in the United States. They have a sponsor here in the United States. I mean, yeah, technically, I guess that's true, but it could just be an organization. It could be
Mhm.
the Mark Garrett Foundation, and you really supply these people with absolutely nothing. You just charge them $500 to use your quote foundation to put in the app. to get
Right.
let in. There's no vetting done. The
Right.
federal government does not have the ability to thoroughly vet 30,000 people a month and do research on their financial sponsor, where they're going to live, how they're going to support themselves. That's not happening. I guarantee you that's not happening.
Yeah, it's a lie because I only read the audience, that short article. I didn't read the whole thing even
Hmm.
to the audience, but I read a number of articles about this and, different people, me included, but I'm reading these other authors are saying that, the vetting aspect of this is a lie. There is no
Hmm.
vetting done. And to your point, Bill, about the app where it says do not bring documentation, I mean, it's
Hmm.
almost anti vetting. We're going to make sure
Yeah,
that we know as little about you as possible.
correct.
It's exactly opposite of what the federal government is telling us they're doing.
Right.
Again, it's absolutely disgraceful. Now, here I want to talk about another
Yeah.
aspect of this, or not really another aspect, but expand on it. Um, about this replacing populations of states like California and New York,
Hmm.
where so many people are fleeing to greener pastures, which is anything beyond a dump right now is greener than, I'm sorry, than California. And
Mm.
sorry, you still live there.
Yeah.
And I mean in total, I lived in a very wonderful part of California. I was very, very happy there. My wife was very happy, my kid was very happy, but we had to get out because it was still outside California, unfortunately. But I wonder if, and I believe that it will, I wonder
Mhm.
if this plan in the long run is going to backfire. Because if you're bringing in unvetted people, like I said on a number of my shows before, maybe even on your show, and kind of the general rule is when you have about 10% of the population that commits about
Mhm.
90% of the crime, if you bring in 10 or 20,000 people to a city, we can be pretty sure that, you know, 5 or 6 or 10% of those people are criminals. They're going to engage in criminal behavior just like our homegrown population does. I don't care where you come from.
Mhm.
All it's going to do is increase the crime level in those cities. All it's going to do is contribute to poverty in those cities. All it's going to do is go ahead and further tax the city, the county, and the state resources in those states. All it's going to do is continue to create cultural divide because these people are not being assimilated at the rate that any country has to assimilate immigrants in order to remain a cohesive culture. So all of these things are just going to be exacerbated, in my opinion. And I'm wondering if all it's going to do is it's going to cost more people to
Right.
flee from those respective cities and more importantly, those respective states.
Smart. Here's why the verification of information is so important, right? One of the big things that's happening now, and I don't really hear people talking about it. So I'm going to give some like a like a micro example of it and then a macro example of it. It's people lying about their age to be considered an unaccompanied minor. Have you heard about this? So the
I,
story
I have
of
in general. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the story
Mhm.
of a gentleman named Yuri Noel Medina Uola. He was a 24-year-old Honduran national. He entered the U.S. through Texas, claiming he was an unaccompanied minor. He told ICE officials he was a 17-year-old and gave a completely different name. Got into the country, ended up committing a murder in Texas, actually killing I'm sorry, a murder in Florida. He went to Florida, actually murdered the person who uh, basically took him in there, was staying in someone's house, murdered the person who took him in.
I remember that particular story.
Yep. So here's what's going on in San Francisco, and this has been going on for a few years now. And hey, you hear the term Mexican drug cartels? That's generally Mexican nationals. The mafia, Italian organized crime, right? That's definite. That's usually Italian nationals, Italian Americans. The retail drug trade in the city of San Francisco, especially the Tenderloin district, is controlled 100% by Honduran nationals right now. It's a huge, huge issue up there. Now, the federal government now has stepped in to try to address the problem up there. All the federal agencies, the alphabet soup. One of the issues they're having is the federal government really doesn't have I don't say the capability or the mechanism to charge minors with felonies, right? They just don't. So what happens? All these Honduran nationals that are running the retail drug distribution in the Tenderloin, What happens every time law enforcement encounters one of them? They say they're 16 years old. They say they're
Mhm.
17 years old. They're 15 years old. They are arresting the same people over and over and over each, and now they're starting to see, because they're fingerprinting the people, they're starting to see they're getting a different name, a different age each time they're arresting them.
Or
Um,
they're the same age each time they arrest him.
yeah, yeah, right. And they get out, and they get out. And
Yeah.
in some cases, they've had to actually get experts to come. Listen to this one, Mark. This is what it's coming to. They've had to get experts to come in and testify about their development or maturity, and make an assessment as to how old they actually are. Are they really minors, or are they adults lying about their age? That's what it's come to there. And that's why this idea of verification of who people are is so important. These people keep getting released over and over and over again, and they are committing, almost like you said, 10% of the people committing 90% of the crime. The drug distribution atrocities that you're hearing about in the Tenderloin in San Francisco right now, it's Honduran nationals that are committing it, and a large portion of them, when they're encountered by law enforcement, they lie about their age and they pretend to be minors.
And by the way, why wouldn't any criminal do just that? If
Yep.
you are a criminal, why wouldn't you lie in order to stay out of prison? And again, I keep pounding this point. Oh, you're racist. You're you know you're this, you're that. Like, stop it. Stop it. When the first thing I say is we have enough homegrown American born criminals. Don't pretend with me that criminals only exist in this country that are born here. Criminals exist in every country. And the more people we bring into this country from foreign shores, especially those that are not vetted, the more we increase the number of criminals in this country. Let's all just grow up and admit the obvious. And to what Bill is saying right here, the difference is that virtually everybody born here is born immediately with documentation, who they are, a birth certificate, then later on a driver's license, social security card. We know who the people are that are born in this country. But if you come over here through a program, a nefarious, despicable program like this, or you come over the border with no documentation, we have no idea who you are. And if you are a criminal, by the way, the vast number of whom coming across the border are not. I completely accept that I believe fact. But if you have a small percentage of people who are coming over here who are already criminally minded, who are already engaged in criminal activity, why would they tell the truth about their age, their name, their country of origin? Why would they tell the truth if they're already criminally minded? This is self-destruction on a level that George Orwell, I think, would have said, "Oh, that's too far-fetched. I can't write a book like that."
Mhm.
This is self-destruction. This is self-implosion. This is self-mutilation as a society, as a culture that, again, I don't think anybody even 15 years ago could have imagined, unless, of course, you're part of this idea to do such. So, um, I don't know where we're gonna go from here, Bill, and I wanted to keep this show short and pithy because it's kind of speaks for itself, and people, maybe we'll link to, the website here, Homeland Security with, ICE, sorry,
Uh-huh.
so people can see the article very quickly for themselves, know what's going on. But here's what I would ask everybody to do. I would ask everybody, please call your representative and just make an inquiry, leave a voicemail, try to get to one of the staffers, but have a conversation if you can with somebody about this particular program and just ask the question, why? Ask
Yeah.
the question, why? Why are these people not vetted? And why are they being flown into the country to begin with? And why haven't you told us, hey, are you flying these people into my city? And just press to get an answer. Be respectful, be professional, and just ask the question. No harassment, nothing like that. Just be professional and ask the question because this has to be exposed completely, and this has to come to a stop as soon as possible.
And Mark, here's one reason why they're coming into airports in literally in the middle of the night. We've all seen the videos from the border. We've all seen the videos from the border. The border's the hot spot. That makes the administration look bad. When a plane flies into an airport at midnight, 11:30 at night, it's real difficult to tell. No one knows what's going on, where that plane's from, who's on that plane, and they've been able to kind of sneakily keep the immigration numbers going up to pad these cities that we talked about. Well, one more thing I want to talk about, Mark, and it's the use of this immigration issue as a foreign policy tools by some of these countries, right? So, for instance, we're talking about flights direct from Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, Nicaragua into the United States, but also there are flights from all those countries into Nicaragua because Nicaragua doesn't require a visa. So let's say I think the number uh, so in recent months, 260 charter flights from Haiti have touched down in Nicaragua. Why is that? I call it immigration tourism. So they've gone to Nicaragua. They don't need a visa to get there, and then they start their land journey coming up to coming up to California, coming up to Texas. They're going to come up and cross the border. So what does Nicaragua do? Nicaragua says to the United States, well, if you give us some concessions on some things, maybe we'll take a look at trying to stop these flights coming from Haiti into Nicaragua. Maybe we can address that. Um, the Ortega government knows they have few important policy tools at hand to confront the United States. So they have armed migration as a way to attack. There is definitely a concrete example of weaponizing migration as a foreign policy. Basically, they're inviting all these people into their country and kind of sending them on the way to the United States, and then telling the United States, well, we could probably do something about this and help address this problem before it gets to your border, but we're going to need some help. We're going to need some concessions. Um, I think Venezuela had done something like that. It's not the first time that we've seen people kind of weaponize weaponize this issue. So a couple more things, Mark. One particular charter airline has flown 31,000 people out of Haiti, which would represent 60% of the Haitians arriving at the U.S. border. 172 flights carried 17,000 people from Cuba to Nicaragua. So what I'm getting at is all these charter airlines are flying people from Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela into Nicaragua, and then they start their journey to the United States. The tickets range between $3,000 and $5,000 for these charter flights. That's a lot more than it costs. You could fly from here to Europe, uh,
Mhm.
probably first class. I don't know, for $5,000. Why are they charging that much? Because it's a scam, right?
Right.
It's a scam that people are willing to pay more for, and it's backed by the Nicaraguan government. Uh, in 48 hours, 27 charter flights from Haiti landed in Nicaragua with these immigrants in them. So just my goal with this is just to point out, Mark, that as I always come back to in a lot of these discussions, our foreign policy, our Department of State, they get manipulated by these foreign governments every day. They get their lunch taken every day, and it's happening again now with immigration, where foreign governments have weaponized immigration, and now they're forcing us to give concessions to them, economic concessions to them, to get their help in stopping this immigration before it gets to our borders. All we need to do is step one, stop it at our borders, and then play a little hardball with these countries and say, listen, if you keep encouraging this, there's going to be more sanctions instead of offering them incentives to help us. It's just ineffective, ineffective the way this administration is handling this.
Yeah, Bill, that's a great insight, and it's a really, really good way cap off the show. Um, I would say ineffective by the administration understatement.
Hmm.
So, compliant is probably closer to it. But Bill, great insights, and as always, we really appreciate you being on the show. You had a lot to it, and appreciate your expertise. Everybody, make sure you do check out Bill Bodner and Truth Nation podcast. Unfortunately, you'll see me on there as a guest quite often. So, so anyway, Bill, thanks a lot, my friend. Great talking with you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time. Your Leo Nation. We believe in the rule of law. Stay safe. Take care of your family. God bless everybody.
Thanks, Mark.